Captain Elias Kane sat inside the narrow capsule, his gloved hand resting on the control panel as Vorton 9 filled the viewport. A bleeding red moon bathed in the light of a dying gas giant. Clouds the color of rust boiled across the surface. Lightning cracked through the haze, illuminating broken cities that stretched like scars. The capsule's descent burned a thin trail across the atmosphere, but no sensors would catch it. Its hull scattered heat and radio waves. It was an old human trick, outdated decades ago, but aliens had never studied desperation. He checked the coordinates one last time. Sector Delta 7. The central fortress of General Karov Vexthal. That was his target. The pod trembled violently as it hit the upper winds. Elias steadied himself, eyes cold, pulse steady. He'd been through worse. He dropped through firestorms over Mars, crawled through irradiated trenches on Titan, watched comrades fade into static over dying comms. Every scar had its place. 3 minutes to surface, the onboard AI whispered. It was a female voice, soft, human. The engineers back on Outpost 97 had done that deliberately. Soldiers trusted something that sounded alive. Elias glanced at the small locket strapped to his wrist. Inside, a faded photo of his sister and her son, both gone when the XYRR burned the Martian colonies. The picture wasn't a reminder of grief anymore. It was a promise. He adjusted his rifle's magnetic clamps and breathed slowly. One soldier, he murmured. That's all they could spare. He remembered the briefing, the hologram of Commander Rhodes flickering in the dark. The man had looked exhausted. We don't have ships left, Elias. Not squadrons, not fleets. Just people who refuse to die quietly. You'll go alone. The target is Karov Vexthal, their planetary commander. Take him out, and their entire invasion grid collapses. An extraction? Elias had asked. Rhodes had hesitated. There won't be one. No surprise. He nodded, saluted, and walked away. The capsule slammed into the planet's surface with a muffled crash. The shock absorbed to the landing gear, throwing dust and metal fragments into the air. He waited for the tremors to fade, then unsealed the hatch. The crimson wind howled in. Outside, the land stretched empty, a wasteland of ash and molten ruins. Half-buried towers jutted from the ground, their surfaces corroded and bent. Once, this had been a human manufacturing colony. Now, alien banners, tall, black spires etched with silver glyphs, marked the territory of the XYR Dominion. Elias stepped out, his boots sinking into the dust. The air smelled of iron and decay. Above him, 2 of the XYR's warships hovered in low orbit, massive silhouettes against the red sky. He crouched low, pulling a hooded cloak over his armor. The visor on his helmet flickered with blue light as it scanned the terrain. Alien patrols roamed nearby, 6-legged drones with spear-like limbs moving in synchronized patterns. Their sensors pulsed across the ruins in rhythmic waves. He moved when the wind rose. Every motion was deliberate, short, quiet, exact. Training had carved reflex into instinct. When he reached the shadow of a collapsed refinery, he paused to watch a group of XYR soldiers march by. They were tall, encased in shimmering armor that reflected the sky's crimson hue. Their faces were hidden beneath masks shaped like elongated skulls. Each carried a plasma halberd that hummed softly. Their movements were mechanical, no individuality, no hesitation. Elias whispered to himself, a whole army afraid of one mistake. He crawled through a breach in the refinery wall and found shelter inside the wreckage. The place was a graveyard of machines. Human skeletons lay among shattered steel, untouched. The XYRR never buried their enemies. To them, corpses were warnings. He knelt beside one of the bodies, a pilot still wearing half-melted armor. The nameplate read Corbin. He removed a single identification tag and slipped it into his pocket. You made it further than most, he said quietly. A soft beep from his scanner broke the silence. A faint transmission signal, encrypted but human. Someone was still alive. He followed it through the ruins until he found a makeshift shelter under a fallen girder. Inside, a young woman sat against the wall, her face pale and thin. Her arm was bandaged with cloth torn from an old uniform. She looked up, startled. You're human? Last time I checked, Elias said. He knelt beside her, scanning the wound. You've been hiding long? Since the bombardment. They took the others. Her voice trembled. You shouldn't be here. They patrol this sector every hour. I'll be gone before the next one. He handed her a ration pack and a small water capsule. Stay underground. Signal Outpost 97 in 3 days. If you hear static, it means we made it. She blinked. We. Humanity. Her lips parted, but he was already moving. The moment stretched, a brief human connection in a dying world, then vanished beneath the wind. Elias continued toward the horizon, where the fortress rose like a black pyramid, its peak piercing the clouds. The structure pulsed faintly with blue light, the energy core visible through its transparent upper layers. That was where Karath resided, untouchable, unchallenged, certain of his superiority. He reached the ridge overlooking the valley. Hundreds of alien soldiers stood in formation below, their armor glinting like liquid mercury. Drones hovered above them, scanning, analyzing, counting. From his vantage point, Elias could see the banners, the sigil of the HFY Dominion, an unblinking eye surrounded by flames. Beneath it, human prisoners knelt in chains. The alien overseers ignored them completely, as though their existence was beneath acknowledgement. He clenched his jaw. You don't even see us. The wind shifted. He activated the stealth coating on his armor, blending into the rocks. The AI's voice returned, a whisper in his ear. Captain, energy readings from the fortress core suggest heavy shielding. You'll need proximity access. I'll get it, he said. How? Elias watched the alien legions below. I'll find their arrogance. That's always the easiest way in. For a moment, he looked back, toward the distant plains where nothing human remained. Then he touched the photo on his wrist, the faces smiling through dust and time. Not much left to lose, he said softly. Just the story. He descended the ridge, vanishing into scarlet mist as thunder rolled overhead. In the fortress command tower far ahead, General Karath Vexthal turned from his data screen. His eyes, black and cold, narrowed as he observed a faint heat anomaly on the edge of the perimeter. Too small to be a strike team, too precise to be debris. Scan it, he ordered. The drone obeyed, but the blip vanished. The general's mandibles twitched in irritation. Probably nothing, his adjutant said. Karatha's voice rumbled like gravel. Everything starts as nothing. Far below, the human soldier moved unseen, silent as the dust he walked through, the last ember of a dying world, heading straight for the Empire's heart. And somewhere within him, beneath exhaustion and grief, a spark of defiance burned, the kind that made gods fear men. The night on Vorten 9 didn't bring darkness. It brought colorless flame. The gas giant's reflected light painted everything in shades of rust and blood, while the fortress's towers pulsed with cold blue veins of energy. Every hum, every vibration in the air felt alive, mechanical, and merciless. Captain Elias Kane moved through the wasteland like a shadow, low and patient. His armor shifted color with the terrain. One moment dust gray, the next obsidian black. The wind carried a metallic taste of ozone. The sky flickered with plasma storms that danced far above, streaking the heavens like a scar. He stopped behind a fractured turbine and checked the scanner. Red outlines pulsed, patrol units sweeping the area in predictable, rigid grids. The XYRR's efficiency was a weakness. They didn't improvise. He waited, counting their rhythm, then slipped through the gap between two ruins. The silence between his movements was deliberate. To an untrained ear, he was nothing more than a faint breath of wind. Half an hour later, he reached the outskirts of what had once been a human logistics center. The roof was gone, the walls half collapsed, and the old insignia of the United Human Federation still clung to a section of the wall, faded, scorched, but recognizable. He ran a gloved hand across it. Still standing, he murmured. A faint metallic click came from the shadows behind him. He didn't turn. His voice was calm. If you're going to pull the trigger, make it count. A hesitant pause, then a voice, trembling but human. You're not one of them? Elias turned slowly. A man emerged from the wreckage. gaunt and pale, his uniform reduced to rags. He carried an old plasma rifle with cracked wiring. The emblem on his sleeve marked him as a sergeant. Once. "Relax," Elias said. "Human Defense Force." He lowered his hood. The man's eyes widened. "You're alive." "I thought—" "Most aren't," Elias interrupted softly. "You alone." The man nodded. "Was part of Delta Squad. We were hit 2 days ago. They rounded up the rest." Elias crouched beside him, inspecting the rifle. "You know the terrain?" "Every inch of this sector. Not that it matters. The HFY see everything." "Not me," Elias said. "You know where they keep the energy grid access points?" The sergeant hesitated. "You're going after the fortress." "That's right. You'll die before you reach the gates." Elias smiled faintly. "Then I'll try not to reach them." For a moment, the soldiers studied him, a mixture of disbelief and awe. They said we were done. That Earth's gone. Mars too. So why keep fighting? Elias looked past him toward the glowing horizon. "Because the universe should remember that we tried." The man lowered his weapon. "There's a conduit line under the drainage fields," he said quietly. "Leads straight to the fortress walls. I'll mark it for you." Elias nodded. "You did enough. Stay alive. Find shelter near the refinery ruins. When it's over, you'll know." The sergeant frowned. "How?" "The sky will change." Elias moved on before the man could speak again. The fields ahead were a maze of twisted pipes and drained chemical pools. Lightning arced across the sky, reflecting on the mirror-smooth surfaces of the puddles. Every flash revealed the skeletal remains of machines. Transport crawlers, refinery bots, drones left rusting in the open air. He knelt beside one of the pools and dipped the sensor rod into the liquid. It glowed faintly blue, still conductive. Perfect. Activating his cloak again, Elias crossed the open ground in short bursts, using the flashes of lightning to mask his movement. The drones patrolling above scanned in rhythmic sweeps, their sensors bright and mechanical. He moved between those beams like a ghost between heartbeats. At the base of the fortress wall, he found the conduit hatch, sealed with alien glyphs that shimmered faintly. He unpacked a compact pulse device and attached it to the lock. A soft vibration ran through the metal, followed by a quiet click. The hatch slid open, revealing a narrow maintenance tunnel. He entered and sealed it behind him. The air inside was cold, recycled, and faintly humming with energy. Alien script pulsed along the tunnel walls like veins of light. He spoke quietly to the AI. "Signal interference?" "Minimal," it replied. "We are inside the outer defense grid. Movement ahead. 2 hostiles stationary. Security? Unarmed technicians. XYRR maintenance cast." Elias moved forward until the tunnel widened into a chamber. 2 XYRR stood near a power junction, their long fingers moving with precision over the glowing panels. Their translucent skin revealed networks of bioluminescent veins. He watched them for a moment, studying their rhythm, then stepped from the shadows and fired twice. 2 silent flashes, 2 bodies collapsing. No hesitation, no cruelty, just necessity. He dragged them aside and accessed the console. The symbols shifted and flickered, resisting translation. The AI projected an overlay in his visor. Partial alignment achieved. Energy pathways mapped. "Uploading virus now," the AI said. "Estimated delay, 30 seconds." Elias waited, eyes scanning the tunnel entrance. His heartbeat didn't quicken. It never did in moments like this. The tension wasn't fear. It was focus, distilled and sharp. When the virus finished uploading, a ripple of light coursed through the conduits. The fortress dimmed for a second, barely noticeable, but enough to mark the system's breach. "That's one door open," he muttered. Then, from the tunnel behind him, came a sound, low, rhythmic, metallic footsteps. Too heavy for drones. He turned off his visor light and melted into the corner shadows. The shape appeared, a towering XYR officer in black armor, scanning the chamber with a spear-like weapon that pulsed with energy. The creature hissed softly, examining the fallen technicians. Elias didn't move. The alien's eyes glowed amber as it approached the console, analyzing the data disturbance. A whisper from the AI. Detected. You must act. Elias exhaled once, then stepped forward, catching the alien in a choke hold before it could react. The weapon clattered to the floor, discharging harmlessly into the wall. The officer struggled, claws scraping metal, but human strength, guided by precision, held firm. A second later, the body went limp. He lowered it silently, retrieved the weapon, and examined it. Unfamiliar but functional. He adjusted the grip, then smiled faintly. You won't mind if I borrow this. He left the tunnel, emerging into a vast underground corridor filled with humming reactors. The ceiling stretched far above, disappearing into darkness. Through narrow vents, he saw faint lights. The city-like interior of the fortress. AI, he whispered, patch me a visual map. A holographic grid flickered across his visor. The central chamber, the command bridge, and at its core, the general's control throne. There, Elias said, that's where this ends. A sudden boom shook the corridor. Energy waves rippled along the walls. The AI's voice sharpened. They detected the virus. Internal lockdown commencing. Elias sprinted forward, the pulse rifled tight against his chest. Behind him, mechanical shutters slammed shut one after another, sealing passageways and cascading echoes. He reached the final gate just as it began to close, sliding beneath it with inches to spare. Sparks flew across his visor. He lawn-raged, casting streaks of firelight across the metal floor. The fortress of Vorten 9 wasn't built. It was grown. The closer Captain Elias Kane moved toward its heart, the more the walls changed from metal to something alive. Veins of light pulsed beneath translucent panels, carrying energy like blood through arteries. Every hum, every vibration under his boots felt organic. The XYRR didn't construct. They bred their structures, living monuments of dominance. Elias moved along a narrow service bridge suspended above a chasm that glowed with blue plasma. The hum of reactors drowned all sound. Below, energy conduits formed a web of veins that fed the tower's core, the seat of General Karoth Vexthal. He checked his rifle's charge, recalibrated the alien weapon strapped to his shoulder, and whispered to his AI. Status: viral infiltration stable. The fortress's defense grid is partially disabled, but they're adapting fast. Internal patrols have doubled. How close am I to the command spire? 6 levels below. Any faster way up? Only through the maintenance lift, currently guarded. He smiled faintly. Then we'll improvise. He found the lift shaft and pried open the service hatch. The shaft stretched upward like an endless throat of black glass. The lift itself hung far above, crawling toward the surface. He secured his harness and fired a grapple line into the wall. The magnet locked. Hand over hand, he began to climb. Each motion was silent, each breath measured. He'd done this 100 times, scaling ruins, ship holes, wreckage. But this climb felt different. The alien architecture hummed beneath his palms, almost reacting to his presence. Once, the wall flickered with bioluminescent lines, as if trying to analyze him. At the halfway point, the AI spoke softly. Thermal readings above, multiple hostiles. I see them. Through the transparent layer above, a squad of XYRR soldiers entered the lift platform. They moved with machine precision, weapons drawn, their armor gleaming like liquid chrome. The elevator halted mid-ascent. Skinshows are inspecting the shaft, the AI warned. Elias hung motionless, pressed against the wall, every muscle still. A thin beam of light swept past him, a sensor probe sliding down the shaft. When it reached his level, he released his grip and dropped. The magnetic harness snapped tight, halting his fall just short of a secondary platform. The probe passed overhead without registering him. When the light vanished, he swung sideways, landed on the platform, and crawled through a maintenance conduit. The narrow tunnel vibrated with energy. Beneath it, he could hear the deep, resonant hum of the command core. Minutes later, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber that looked nothing like a military command room. It resembled a cathedral, immense and symmetrical, with ribbed arches of dark material stretching toward a central dais. At its center stood the throne of dominion, where General Korath ruled. The general sat tall and unmoving, a silhouette of power. His armor shimmered like black glass, reflecting streaks of energy. Behind him, massive windows revealed the stormy red sky of Vorten 9. Elias crouched on a balcony high above, studying the alien warlord. Around Korath stood 4 sentinels, elite guards with double-bladed halberds. Their armor emitted faint static as they stood perfectly still, awaiting orders. Target visual confirmed. The AI whispered, "Magnify," Elias said. The visor zoomed in on Karatha's face, angular, regal, with mandibles curved like obsidian knives. His eyes glowed pale amber, their depth cold and endless. This was no mere soldier. This was the architect of genocide. Elias steadied his rifle. The AI calculated trajectories. 73% chance of success, it said. Not good enough. Before he could adjust, the general moved, slow, deliberate. His voice carried across the chamber, deep and resonant. "I know you are here, human." Elias froze. Karatha's eyes turned toward the balcony. "Your species reeks of defiance. It is your scent, bitter, predictable." He stood, towering above his guards. "Show yourself." Elias stayed silent, unmoving. The general chuckled, a dry, echoing sound. "We crushed your fleets, burned your worlds, silenced your songs. And yet you crawl here, one survivor among ashes. Do you think I cannot smell your fear?" Elias exhaled quietly. "AI," he whispered, "divert local power." A soft pulse flickered through the room, the virus he'd planted earlier activating inside the conduits. The lights dimmed, shadows deepened, and for the first time, Karatha's guard shifted uneasily. Elias whispered, "Now we even the odds." He dropped from the balcony, landing in a crouch behind a fallen column. The thud echoed. The guards reacted instantly, spreading into formation. Plasma halberds ignited with a low, vibrating hum. Korath extended one clawed hand. "Alive. I want to see his eyes when he understands the futility of existence." Elias rose from cover and fired. The shot struck the nearest guard, collapsing his armor in a burst of blue flame. The others charged. He rolled aside, fired again, then ducked under a sweeping blade. Sparks rained across the floor. His movement was pure precision, minimal, sharp, efficient. One guard lunged. He sidestepped, twisting the alien rifle upward and firing point blank. The shot burned through the guard's chest. The third swung wide. Elias caught the halberd shaft, spun it, and drove it back through the creature's neck. 3 down. 1 to go. The final guard attacked with brutal speed, catching Elias across the shoulder. Pain seared through his armor. He gritted his teeth, countered with a quick strike to the creature's midsection, and finished with a pulse blast that sent it crashing into the wall. Smoke drifted across the floor. The throne chamber fell silent except for the hum of dying weapons. Korath descended from the dais, unhurried, his presence filling the room. "Remarkable," he said. "A single human carving through my elite. Do you feel proud, little spark?" Elias steadied his rifle. "I feel alive." The general tilted his head. "A temporary condition." Karatha's arm split open, revealing an embedded plasma cannon. He fired. A streak of light ripped through the air. Elias dove behind the column as molten shards exploded around him. The AI's voice cut through the chaos. Energy reading spiking. "That weapon will overload the chamber." "Good," Elias muttered. "Let him waste it." He threw a charge toward the base of the throne. The explosion tore through the platform, sending arcs of electricity across the walls. The fortress shuddered. Alarms echoed from above. Korath roared, a sound that shook the entire spire. "You insects never learn." Elias darted between columns, reloading. "We learn faster than you think." He fired at the window behind the general. The glass cracked, spiderwebbing under impact. The alien turned distracted. Elias seized a moment, sprinting forward. The two met at the center of the dais. Human and warlord, soldier and empire. Before he could fire, A shock wave threw him back. Koroth slammed his clawed fist into the floor, activating the defense grid. Energy barriers surged between them, sealing the chamber. The tunnel was a narrow artery of metal and light, pulsing with the dying heartbeat of the fortress. Elias Kane ran through it, his boots pounding against the floor panels as the alarms blared overhead. Sparks rained from broken conduits, filling the air with the stench of ozone. The fortress groaned like a living creature in pain. The virus he'd unleashed was doing its job, destabilizing systems, feeding chaos through the alien network. But the damage was spreading faster than he anticipated. The entire spire might collapse before he reached his extraction point. His AI spoke over the noise. "You got 6 minutes before the core implodes. The outer decks are sealing themselves. The only exit route left is through the upper hangar." Elias wiped blood from his cheek and kept running. "Then that's where we're going." "Correction," the AI replied. "That's where they're going too. XYRR forces are converging. I detect over 40 hostiles between you and the hangar." "40 is a good number," he said, breath steady despite the exhaustion. "It means they're scared." He reached a junction where the tunnel split into 3 paths. The central one pulsed red, locked. The others flickered uncertainly. He knelt, cracked open a maintenance panel, and shoved a data spike into port. The AI began rerouting energy. While he waited, he stared at the flickering lights on his wrist display. Vitals unstable, ammo low, oxygen at 42%. But it didn't matter. The mission wasn't about survival. It was about message. The panel clicked open. He stepped into a dim corridor that looked older than the rest. Less biological, more industrial. Ancient, even by human standards. The walls bore markings, symbols of a time before Karotha's dominion. The place felt like a grave. He slowed his pace. "AI, what's this section?" "Unregistered in XYRR architecture. Possibly pre-conquest infrastructure. Scans detect remains." "Human?" "No, something older." Before Elias could respond, the corridor lights dimmed to black. A low hum filled the space, not mechanical, not electrical. Something alive. He raised his weapon. A voice drifted from the darkness, deep and distorted. "You carry the scent of defiance." Elias froze. "Koroth." "No!" The voice replied, echoing from everywhere and nowhere. "I am what came before him." A shape emerged from the shadows, tall, thin, wrapped in shimmering mist. It wasn't solid, not quite there. Its face was obscured by light, but its presence was overwhelming. The AI whispered in his ear, "Non-corporeal projection detected. Unknown energy signature." Elias kept his rifle up. "Talk fast. The place is falling apart." The entity tilted its head. "You are human, the last ember of a fading fire. You came here seeking vengeance." "I came here for a message," he said coldly. "Yes," the being murmured, "and you've already delivered it." The general felt it, the fear. Elias frowned. "Who are you?" The light flickered, revealing fragments of its form, metallic bones beneath a veil of energy. "I am the first warlord of Vorten, before the XYRR corrupted it, before arrogance consumed us. You awaken echoes of what we lost." Elias tightened his grip. "If you're real, help me finish this. The fortress core is about to blow. I need a way out." The being regarded him in silence. Then, slowly, it extended a hand. The walls responded, veins of blue light shifting and parting to reveal a hidden passage. "This path leads to the hangar," it said. "But know this, human, Koroth will not perish in flame. He has endured worse." Elias took a cautious step forward. "Then I'll make sure he doesn't endure this." The entity's gaze followed him. "You fight not for survival, but meaning. That is your strength and your doom." When he turned to respond, the figure was gone. The corridor stood empty. Only the hum of dying power remained. He moved fast through the new passage, emerging onto a wide catwalk overlooking the upper hangar. The view took his breath for a moment. Massive warships docked in suspended fields, their hulls shimmering in alien energy. The hangar stretched like a city inside the fortress, illuminated by collapsing reactors. And across the expanse, waiting for him, stood Koroth Vexthal, The general's armor was scorched, one shoulder cracked from their earlier fight. But his presence was unbroken, cold, regal, terrifying. Around him, hundreds of HFY soldiers lined the deck, weapons drawn, wings folded in discipline. Elias stepped forward. His voice echoed across the hangar. You called humans pathetic. Said one soldier was enough. Let's test that. Karatha's mandibles curve into something like a smile. You survived. Impressive. Pointless, but impressive. You talk too much, Elias said, raising his rifle. Karath raised a claw. Hold. The soldiers froze. I wish to see this human's final defiance with my own eyes. Elias moved along the catwalk, eyes scanning for openings. His AI whispered, There's a fuel conduit under the deck. If ruptured, it could ignite the hangar. How long to overload it? 30 seconds. Then we'll buy 30 seconds. He leapt from the catwalk, landing hard on the deck below. The HFY soldiers reacted instantly. Plasma bolts filled the air. Elias rolled behind cover, returning fire with precision. Each shot found its mark, cutting through armor joints, never wasted. He moved like a ghost, unseen until the last moment, always one step ahead. His AI synchronized shots with microbursts from his suit, amplifying the impact. Still, the sheer number of enemies was overwhelming. A blast struck his shoulder, sending pain lancing through his body. He gritted his teeth, pressed his hand against the wound, and kept fighting. Karath advanced through the chaos, unstoppable. This is your extinction. Human, your courage dies with you. Elias ducked behind a fuel tank, planning a charge. Yeah, he muttered. Let's make it count. The AI counted down softly. 10 seconds. Elias stepped out from cover, facing Karath. You think strength is domination. You never understood why we fight. Karatha's eyes blazed. Because you fear annihilation. No, Elias said, leveling his rifle. Because we remember. The charge detonated. The floor split open, a column of blue fire tearing through the hangar. The explosion rippled outward, consuming everything. Ships, soldiers, the air itself. Elias was thrown backward, crashing into the edge of a platform. His armor flared with emergency shields, flickering under the pressure. Through the smoke, he saw Karath still standing, armor cracked, flames licking his form. The general bellowed in rage, striking through the debris. You think this ends me? Elias struggled to his feet, gripping his rifle. It ends your illusion. He fired one last shot, straight into the exposed core conduit above the throne. The blast cascaded through the energy grid, triggering a chain reaction. The storm over Vorten 9 had not calmed for 3 days. The once proud alien fortress was now a crater of molten glass. Shards of its spire jutted like bones from the ground, still burning in blue flame. The HFY Dominion's command hub, the heart of their invasion, was gone, yet the echoes of what happened there refused to fade. From the orbiting colonies above Earth's ruins, every surviving human outpost had received the same transmission. It had begun as static, then a flicker of broken words. A voice both calm and fierce, stretched thin through light years of distance. They called us weak. They forgot what it means to be human. Those 12 words became a fire across the void. In the weeks that followed, whispers spread through underground channels. No one knew how a single man had infiltrated the HFY's most secure fortress. No one knew how he had survived long enough to destroy it. But every survivor, every soldier hiding beneath ruined cities or adrift in cold stations, spoke the name Elias Kane as if it were a spark of memory reborn. The legend grew faster than the truth could keep up. Commander Rhodes stood at the viewing platform aboard Outpost 97, staring at the faint glow in the distance, the burning remnants of Vorten 9. The atmosphere around him was heavy with silence. Behind him, the surviving officers watched the holographic playback of the final transmission again and again, as though trying to draw strength from every syllable. He actually did it, whispered Lieutenant Mara. Her voice trembled between awe and disbelief. Rhodes didn't answer immediately. His weathered face looked carved from stone, his eyes fixed on the burning moon. He was never supposed to come back, he said finally. Mara turned. But he made it. The XYRR fleets fractured, their command networks collapsing. If that's not victory. Rhodes cut her off gently. Victory as a price. He paid it in full. He tapped the console beside him. The hologram shifted, showing Elias's biometric data during the mission. Every reading flatlined moments before the explosion. He knew, Rhodes murmured. He knew he wouldn't survive. Mara's voice softened. Then why do it alone? He looked up at her, tired eyes glinting. Because sometimes one soldier is all that's left between extinction and hope. Far below, deep within the wreckage of Vorton 9, wind howled through collapsed chambers. Amid the rubble, shards of alien metal flickered faintly. From beneath one twisted bulkhead, a faint sound broke the silence. A slow, irregular heartbeat. Elias Kane gasped as air returned to his lungs. His body felt like stone, his armor half fused with molten glass. The explosion had thrown him across the hangar, into a structural cavity that shielded him from the worst of the blast. His visor was shattered, the HUD dead. He coughed blood and dust. AI status? No response. Only static. He dragged himself out from the debris, each motion tearing fire through his muscles. His legs barely held him. The world around him was smoke and ruin. The sky above fractured by stormlight, the ground beneath trembling as molten rivers flowed to the remains of alien steel. Elias stared at the crater where the command tower once stood. It was gone. So was Korath. For a long moment, he just stood there, surrounded by silence. The war had taken everything. His family, his home, his world. Now, it seemed, it had taken even sound itself. Then came a faint whir, soft, hesitant. From the shadows crawled one of the XYRR's damaged drones. Its armor was cracked, its optical sensors flickering. It halted a few feet away, scanning him. Elias raised his weapon instinctively, then stopped. The rifle's power cell was dead. The drone tilted its head, almost curious. Instead of attacking, it extended one of its broken limbs and projected a faint hologram. The figure of Korath appeared, distorted, fragmented by static. Human, the recorded voice said, warped and fading. You think destruction makes you strong. Yet even in victory, you kneel in the ashes of your own making. Elias's jaw tightened. You're still talking, even after death. The hologram flickered, showing Koratha's face twisted with rage. You will never rebuild. You will scatter into dust. Your defiance dies with you. The image faded. Elias exhaled slowly. Guess we'll see. He used the drone's remains to power his emergency beacon. It took him 6 tries, each pulse weaker than the last, but eventually, the transmitter flared to life, a signal that cut through the interference like a whisper in a hurricane. Then his vision blurred. He sank to one knee, exhaustion pulling him down. For the first time in years, he felt something he hadn't allowed himself to feel. Peace. If this was how it ended, he was fine with that. 2 days later, the recovery shuttle from Outpost 97 found him half buried in the ruins. He was unconscious, but breathing barely. The medics couldn't believe it. They called him the ghost of Earth as they carried him aboard. When he woke, he was surrounded by blinding white light. He tried to move, but felt the weight of restraint bands across his chest. The voice that greeted him was warm, familiar. You're supposed to be dead, Commander Rhodes said from the corner of the med bay. Elias blinked, his voice rasping. Guess I missed the memo. Rhodes approached slowly, pulling a chair beside his bed. You did it, Elias. The XYRR lines are collapsing. Their fleets are retreating across half the sectors. You started something we didn't think was possible. Elias stared at the ceiling. It wasn't about starting something. It was about ending what they began. Rhodes nodded. Still, humanity needed to see it. They needed to remember that one voice, one act, can change the course of everything. He leaned forward, lowering his tone. The recordings of your mission, they're spreading across the colonies. You become a symbol. Elias let out a dry, bitter laugh. A symbol? I'm just a soldier who got lucky. Rhodes smiled faintly. No, Elias, you're the proof that courage still exists. For a long moment, neither spoke. The hum of medical machines filled the silence. Finally, Elias said quietly, "We lost too much. Don't let them turn this into myth. Remember the real cost." Rhodes placed a hand on his shoulder. "We will." He stood and turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. "Rest now, Captain. You've earned it." As the door closed, Elias looked toward the viewport. Beyond it, space stretched wide and silent. Cold stars scattered across black infinity. But somewhere out there, humanity was breathing again. He reached for the locket strapped to his wrist, the one with a faded photo inside. The glass was cracked, but the faces still smiled through the dust.